I have, like, sometimes when I don't have anything for an intro, I turn up and I try and make that a bit. I try and make something out of that. But I cannot articulate the scope of the nothing I have for you.
There's always the fallback option of just start with hello, it's Podquisition, and just go straight into a video game. Like, that is an option that's always on the table.
Here's the thing. I didn't play anything this past week either.
Oh, no.
I present to you, for the first time, anti-content.
Uh-huh.
One moment. What do you reckon on that? Revolutionary, huh? What you just listened to then was the world's first anti-content.
I don't know, there was that guy that released a song that was like 4 minutes of silence who might have beaten you to it.
Yeah, actually, even as I was doing it, it was complete bollocks, because me and Conrad have already literally done this bit.
Mm-hmm.
We once posted a podcast that was hosted by some mime artists.
Yep.
And I believe you just uploaded an hour of silence, didn't you, Conrad?
Well, I mean, it was bookended with some light music, yes.
Yeah.
It was like an hour of, or 30 minutes, I don't know, of just blank air, bookended by very light accordion music.
Yeah. What I might do, because there's no way that hasn't been done quite a few times.
Oh, no,
whether it's songs or podcasts or some other audio medium. Someone should compile a best of. That's what I want to see. A best of bits where something is silent for and joke.
I want commercials for that collection, like the old ones where they would
God. There we are. We pulled something.
We got a bit.
Yeah.
That's good.
Is everyone okay? I'm beat up. I've got a split lip. I'm annoyed. I'm really annoyed. I had a big hardcore match on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Really good match. Really good. I've not been feeling great about my wrestling acumen lately because I didn't get a lot of ring time last year. I felt like I'd lost a step. But something about turning heel, wrestling Helen Charlotte Campbell, and battering someone in a hardcore match just hits all of my boxes, really. Puts me back. Like, I feel back on my game. I woke up from that match feeling more beat up than I ever have. You know, I've done several hardcore matches. I've done several regular matches that I end up feeling really beat up from. I haven't got a single fucking bruise on me. The week before, where I spent 30 seconds in the ring and got a nosebleed from a promo, still had more bruises on me than this one. And I like the war wounds. I like the show of a job well done. Helen, lucky fucker, walked away with all sorts of welts after what I did, because I bought the least kinky looking strap I could, because I didn't want it to look like a sex thing. Even though it was a sex implement, I got the most basic looking, because it isn't supposed to be a sexy, it's supposed to make a brilliant noise, which it did. Left her all sorts of red marks on her. I got nothing. And I got my head bounced into the ring post, legit. I ended up hitting the ring post a little too hard with my own head. And I'll tell you what, Conrad, I'm beginning to think the ring post is the hardest part of the ring.
Really?
Not the ring apron. As someone who's now collided legitimately with both, I think the metal bit might be harder than the wood bit.
Huh.
Yeah. Oh, that fucking kind. Great match. Loudest chair shots anyone's ever heard, or certainly people in that audience had ever heard. I bought that white custom chair. Knocked the shit out of each other with it, we did. And then I had some more heelish antics to do later that day. So I thought it would be cute. All I had to do was sit in the audience and like do some heelish distraction for Priscilla in the ring. I thought it would be cute to take the chair that I'd used in the hardcore match and sit on that. Now, as someone who grew up with a lot of fat phobia, I have one very particular trauma, which I lived through as I sat in that chair and it crumpled underneath me because its structural integrity had been completely fucked. Now, Ace Matthews, another wrestler on the card, bless him, tried to cheer me up when I went backstage and ugly cried.
Oh.
If it helps, he said, it was fucking hilarious.
Did that help?
It did a bit, because I know what he meant. Because, you know, he said, you're a heel now, you go out, egg on your face, that's fine.
Yeah.
And I did style it out, because I sat on this chair, arms folded, put my legs out in front of me and crossed those, and then the chair crumpled and I slowly slid to the floor, and I maintained the posture with the arms folded and the legs crossed until I was just sat on the floor in the same pose.
I hate to say it, but without the backstory context, witnessing that happen probably looked like the greatest bit of scripting and timing preparation anyone had ever pulled off.
I took charge of it and turned it into a bit that worked, you know. I styled it out with that so it looked properly comedy. Got up, you know, made a big protest in front of everyone. That chair was just used in a hardcore match, etc. And then just sort of took a petulant, I don't care anyway, I'll stand, it's fine. So turned it into, like, good laughs, and then the rest of it was good. But, you know, I'm a fat girl. I grew up fat when fat phobia was a lot worse in the UK than it is these days. I have a lot of trauma related to that, and I have legit nightmares about something like that happening. So even though it's not really a big deal, and there's a very good reason it broke, because we put that chair and ourselves through hell earlier that day, it still got me really bad. I did the whole segment out there. It was great. Went backstage, hid somewhere, and just had a bit of a cry about it. And then Ace found me and, you know, calmed me down. He's a good guy. Yeah, it was rough. Great day, though. I have turned fully heel at Tidal, and it is good to, like, first time in 3 years? And I am really pleased with that. But yeah, slightly mortifying. It was a big day of up and down. It was a 2-show day. I got there in the morning and left in the evening, exhausted, and really awesome stuff, coupled with traumatic stuff. So I'm still now in a very confused mood. How is everyone else?
I'm doing good. I've got some cool work stuff coming up today. I played some cool games this week. I'm having a good one.
I just spent a long weekend in Massachusetts visiting my in-laws, and that was very pleasant. And yeah, glad to be back home, but good to get away.
Yeah.
I got a video game I want to tell you both about.
Oh,
go for
I
it.
hope so, because I've got none.
I played a few interesting ones, but I've got one in particular I want to talk about that I played a demo for this week, and the demo's pretty beefy, and it's got me real excited for the actual game. It's called Mindwave. Mindwave is a WarioWare-style game with an engaging plot. The concept is that you're in this dystopian cyberpunk future, scribbledy sort of looking world, and you are trying to take part in this competition that is essentially mental battles with other people where you're plugged, you get your wire plugged into your spinal cord or whatever, and you are trying to do mini-games inside the other person's brain to beat them in competition.
Excellent.
Working your way through this tournament. So the gimmick is that all of your WarioWare-style levels you're going throughout the story are set in another individual's memories. So you have really strong theming for your WarioWare-style minigames, because they are all the cohesive, collective memories of the teenager you're fighting.
Huh.
And the concept is used really well to tie together the theming of the WarioWare content. So, like, the first one of these, like, proper big battles you're doing is against someone who's, like, this cutesy pastel 16-year-old, and, like, the WarioWare minigames you're doing are like a mix of DDR-style battles to do a Sailor Moon transformation. At one point you're doing... imagining there's a person running along the phone lines when you're in the backseat of the car, jumping over the crows. There's one where you're sorting your little teddies into different boxes. And all of it's, like, very clearly artistically and musically themed to give you a sense of the person you're battling against. And there are these sort of narrative sections in between where you are, like, getting to know the other competitors in this tournament and experiencing the world building, trying to, like, talk to people in between rounds of this tournament to, like, get a sense of who you might be about to battle and, like, what sort of stuff you need to be prepared for in people's minds. I've been loving a lot of the world building stuff around the competitive doing WarioWare in people's brains community that exists in the world. There's this really interesting conversation early on with someone who's, like, talking about being a competitive player at this sort of in-universe sport and having to wrestle with losing track of which memories are theirs and not, and that being like a really serious concern for people who do too much of this in-universe sport is seeing too much of someone else's memories and starting to confuse them for your own. And this is all just layered on top of really, really fucking solid WarioWare game content. The demo is on PC on Steam, and this is one of those games that you have to play on a mouse and keyboard. Like, you're not going to be playing this on Steam Deck, because it does a lot of changing control schemes that are built around different elements of your keyboard or mouse, or different keyboard and mouse configurations. Sometimes it'll be stuff that's like, you're using your mouse for... I don't know, stuff that is specifically mouse-oriented, like trying to quickly click on numbers on a phone or draw a circle around someone. Sometimes you're doing WASD and spacebar. Sometimes it's the whole keyboard and you don't know what the keyboard's going to ask from you, and it might be like, hold down these keys to be a guitar player and move the mouse at the same time to strum the guitar. It does a lot of using the keyboard and mouse as a widely varied set of inputs. And I think it does a good job of cueing you into roughly what orientation you're going to need to do before a minigame starts, before throwing you in. It's got a really fucking catchy soundtrack. Its soundtrack is so damn good. And one thing I appreciate about this as a demo is, despite the fact that it only goes up to, like, the first stage of the tournament, and then it's like, you can't keep doing the story because it's a demo, there is an endless mode available that has several minigames that weren't in the story content you'd seen so far. And that endless mode has kept me really engaged already. I've been really addicted to playing more and more of this just very stylish WarioWare with a plot.
That sounds really good.
Yeah, it's... I don't want to say too much about the narrative stuff, because it's like, it's the thing that sets it apart, and it's the thing that I think is worth going in and experiencing in the demo right now. But I was genuinely impressed at how invested I was getting in the story of a WarioWare game, essentially.
Yeah.
Well, I think
and that was pretty cool.
it's one of those contrast situations. You never really see it, and it seems like such a good idea, because when you are making the mini, it's so many just like mini games, and that's a lot of it, like time investment and balancing and making sure that feels clean and fun and tight.
Yeah.
But it also means that for the player, their attention is going to be able to be largely focused on the story. And so you really have to kind of like nail that, because the other thing is just minor distraction. So to do it well is impressive.
The balance so far from the demo feels really nicely tuned. Like, I didn't feel like either the minigame stuff or the story was the wrong mix in how much I was getting of both.
Nice.
And if you are just not interested in the plot, you can at any time just be like, nah, just take me to the next round of the tournament. Just go. But yeah, Mindwave. Well worth checking the demo out. It is real addictive, and it feels surprising it's taken this long for a WarioWare game to go, what if we had a story that was cool?
Yeah. I'm very intrigued. I will probably check that out.
Steph, you say you've played nothing this week.
Not really. I mean, it's just been more Sengoku Basara, and I think I've said all there is I could say. I mean, I could say a lot more, but all that really matters to be said. I've got other Wii games that I've not really touched because Sengoku Basara lives in there now. Did I mention I tried Wii Music for the first time ever a couple of weeks ago?
You put it on the list and you never brought it up, yeah.
Utter shit.
Oh, it's fucking terrible.
It's beyond bad. What even is it?
It feels like telling a toddler to pretend they're playing the trumpet.
Yeah, that's what it is.
It feels like there's as much gameplay or as much musical talent involved as that.
Yeah. Like, I thought at least there'd be, like, recognizable Nintendo music.
No.
But, like, when I started it, it's a couple of, like, classical pieces. There's, like, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, a couple of, like, classical musics. And when I say a couple, I mean a few, like, maybe 5. And maybe there's other stuff you unlock, but I'm never going to get it. It is one of the most insipid things. And I can't even say one of the most insipid things I've ever played, because I don't feel like I've played that. And I have been one of the vocal opponents of the idea of pointing at some games and saying that's not a real game. That's a non-game. Because I think, game's a game. If it's interactive entertainment, we've just all sort of popularly put that under the label of video game, and that's fine. It doesn't matter if there's not points or a fail state. But that's the closest I've ever come to being like, that's not a game. That's a fucking joke, is what that is.
There might be more to it than I remember, but the only thing I remember of it is it essentially felt like wiggle the Wii Remote to change the speed that the song is going to play at is essentially what it felt like it boiled down to.
Sort of, yeah. To me, it was just make a bunch of noise over a song.
Yeah. It's you either mess up how the song sounds by doing stuff over it, or you make it go faster or slower.
Yeah. And that is basically it. There's nothing. And it's not even very responsive and stuff. The controls aren't interesting, because it's all just shake it about. You can, hold a button to make it sound a bit different, but it doesn't matter. It's not very responsive, so even if you try and treat it like a real game, and you're like, right, I'm going to hit the actual beats, it's just frustrating, because it doesn't register all of them. A lot of the instruments, some of which are like pom-poms, so it's just a character going, yeah, oh, over it. Some of the stuff doesn't even fit into any of the music. So if you use it, you're just going to create a cacophony. The only fun I had with it is you can make an album cover for every bit of music you vandalize. And you can take character models of the various, band members or whatever, and they've got preset poses, and you can overlay them almost like, it's like fucking virtual stickers, really. But you can change their shape. Not their shape, you can change their size and that. So the only fun I had was having 2 versions of myself and making it look like I was sticking a trumpet up my own arse. That was, and that's the noise I made, Laura. That's what I got out of it. I got an immature laugh out of it, and then I put it away. That embarrassing E3 2012 demo of Wii Music is infinitely more entertaining, even though it is dishonest, because that makes it look like it might actually be something. Also, they play the Mario music in it, and I didn't see the Mario music in it. Fucking awful.
What about you, Conrad? What have you been playing this week?
It's been board games for the most part. I've had a couple of lucky finds in the thrift stores as of late. And so a couple of weeks ago, I picked up a copy of Alien, Fate of the Nostromo.
Oh.
Yeah, this was a Ravensburger published game. I think it came out in 2018, I think. That sounds right. And it is a cooperative board game where you are the crew of the Nostromo trying to deal with the onboard alien threat. It picks up pretty much right after the canteen scene in Alien.
When shit's kicking off.
Yeah, right when shit kicks off. and you each have one of the crew members that you control, and you have to work together to complete a set of objectives that are randomly assigned that all match up to tasks that were performed or attempted to be performed in the film, followed by a final mission that is one of the bigger ways that they attempt to deal with the alien. It's just a very simple move around the board and find the items that you need and take them to the places that you need them to be to complete the objectives to move on. But you're perpetually stalked by the alien, and this is managed by a series of event cards that determine, how far the alien might move in a turn, if the alien moves at all. Sometimes you'll get cards that are orders from Weyland-Yutani that, fuck with your shit. Sometimes the alien just disappears and now you don't know where it is, and you can enter into rooms and there will be tiles there that you have to uncover to determine, oh shit, is Jonesy here? And that's going to freak me out and cause morale on the team to go down. And if you run out of morale, the alien wins. And it's a very, very basic, short, light cooperative game, but it seems fairly well balanced that you have a shot at it. You don't feel hopeless, which is good. A lot of times these games can feel like you're just so overwhelmed by the odds against you that it gets frustrating, and this isn't the case here. Pretty neat, pretty simple, worth the $12 I paid for it, but I don't know if I would have paid full retail at time of release. But if you can pick it up on the cheap, it's pretty good, and it comes with nice little figurines of all of the crew, minus Ash, who just gets a cardboard standee. And the alien looks cool, and the ship is, the board really does a good layout of what that ship might have been, and it's cool. I like it. It was a good deal.
That sounds good.
Yeah, it's fun. What about you, Laura?
I played another demo for a thing that this was like a much rougher demo for a thing that looks really promising. I saw a trailer and I went and checked out on Steam. There's a game coming out called Stretchmancer. And there's no demo on Steam, but there is a really early demo for it on itch.io that was made, over a weekend for a Luddenham Dare a few years back. And I think the demo, while very bare bones, because it was made in, 48 hours, does capture what I find really interesting about the game's concept, and it does sell me that I should keep an eye on this on Steam. So, the idea of Stretchmancer is it is a puzzle game in the vein of your sort of Portal, Superliminal, where you have your one gimmick of how you're going to engage with puzzle rooms. And the gimmick here is you can click on a wall to stretch the level in that direction, to stretch the level away from you on whatever axis you're looking in. And the way that this works is there is a set amount of mass to the environment. So if you're looking forward and you stretch the wall in front of you away from you, the ceiling will also come down, because to stretch it further out, the mass has got to come from somewhere, and something's got to give way, and the ceiling's going to come down. The room's going to get less height. So you might make a gap in front of you larger. You're not going to climb over it anymore, but you might now be able to jump up onto something that was previously too tall. Maybe you stretch a room sideways to step between some prison bars that are too thin for you to get between normally. Maybe you stretch the side wall of a room to make the area in front of you come closer to you, and now you can jump over a gap. It's all about squashing and stretching bits of the environment in relative position, and working out what that does to the overall shape of an environment to help you navigate it. The core mechanic works really well, and it's one of those things that I see why you do this in a 48-hour jam and go, this idea's got something, we should stick with it. And the videos I've seen for the full game have expanded it to not just stretching the room on its axes, but being also able to deliberately pull the room rather than push it, just stretching objects within a room rather than the whole room. I can see where the potential of the idea expanding is. It's worth checking out the itch demo just to get a feel of I can see that very quickly the core idea does work. It's very clear that is a proof of concept more than it is a finished game, but it does have some of the character and world building that seems to have made it through to the full game, like, present there. It's not a thing where right now I would say the demo is reflective of something that would necessarily hold up as a finished game, but it's enough that it's put Stretchmancer on my radar as a very promising looking puzzle platformer.
Nice.
Yeah.
And that's Stretchmancer.
Yeah, Stretchmancer.
Cool.
Yeah. And I played one other that I can talk about a little bit, and I don't know if either of you played this. Have either of you played Yooka-Laylee and the Impossible Lair? This is not the original Yooka-Laylee, so I didn't get on with the original Yooka-Laylee.
No, me neither, quite famously.
In theory, I'm the kind of person that should really enjoy a revisit of the 3D banjo formula, and there's just a lot of things about Yooka-Laylee that just didn't gel for me. I didn't get on with it. But Yooka-Laylee and the Impossible Lair is a 2D side-scrolling platformer follow-up that I am infinitely more engaged with. I think it is a much better game. The titular Impossible Lair, the idea is you start the game doing this very difficult endgame side-scrolling level, but this Princess of the Bees has given you a magical shield of protection, so like you're going through this very impossible platforming level with complete immunity and protection. Oh no, the villain has a wand that can mind control bees and your magical bee shield's no longer working, you get thrown out. You then go do a bunch of 2D platforming levels. Every time you complete a level, you get 1 hit's worth of shield for when you go back and try and do the quote-unquote impossible level at the end. You are going and doing levels to earn a certain number of hits of protection for attempting a deliberately unfair final level. There's a few things that I think work better about this than the core Yooka-Laylee. Rather than trying to be a little bit jack of all trades, as Yooka-Laylee was, and not really being great at too many of the many things it was trying to do, this is just very traditional side-scrolling platformer. Controls are really, really tight. Levels are generally fairly short, have a unique gimmick and a good sense of unique level design to them. There's a handful of hidden collectibles to try and find hidden around the level, but generally just have fun having momentum with the moveset. There is some unique stuff that I've been enjoying with this. There is sort of an overworld between 2D platforming levels. And by exploring and making changes to the overworld, you can unlock alternative forms of these platforming levels. A good example is maybe you find a way to divert a river in the overworld, and now the river is flowing over the entry point to a level. Now you go back into that level, and the level is flooded with water, and you've got an alternative version of the level to play through. Maybe you get a beehive to fall down on a level's entry point, and now the level has sticky walls that you can do unique jumping up that you couldn't do before. And it's this interesting mesh of just good, satisfying 2D platforming and trying to find things in this overworld that will unlock funky little level variants to play through. And just by nature of being a lot less focused on trying to be too many things at once and going, we have a good feeling platforming control scheme mechanic. Let's just focus on you doing satisfying platforming. It plays a lot better. And I'm having a lot more fun with it now that it's not constantly stopping me every 2 seconds to try and be going, here's a wacky banjo-style character we made. They're still there, but they're much better spread out so that they're not constantly every 2 seconds stopping the experience. And I'm having a lot of fun with it as someone that did not get on with Yooka-Laylee at all. I want to stick with it, I want to put more time into it, but the overall conceit has gotten me on board. And I feel a lot more positively about its weird little characters and whatnot because of the fact they're being used more sparingly. Yeah. What about you, Conrad? You played anything else this week?
The only other thing I played this week is picked up a copy of Ticket to Ride London for I think like $5 at a thrift store this past weekend. And it is a very compact, tight little version of Ticket to Ride that is centered around bus routes through the city. And, you know, getting from one point to another. It's, if you've played Ticket to Ride, basically, it's that kind of thing. You're claiming routes, connecting locations within the city of London to score points. with your larger goal being attempting to connect to specific locations or group together entire districts to score additional points, and whoever manages to score the most points by the end wins. I loved to play original Ticket to Ride when it was on Xbox Live Arcade years and years ago, but it was never a game that I had as a board game object. And this is not the same. It is much, much faster. Like, a game of this can be run through in 10 to 15 minutes if you have people who know what they're doing. Our games tended to run closer to half an hour because we were playing with some people who didn't necessarily know what they were doing. But it's a really, really small board, and that has some impact on some of the strategy. One of the major mechanics is that risk-reward of taking additional routes between two locations to try and, because they're worth the most points ultimately if you can get a lot of them, but they come with the risk of losing the points if you can't complete them. And this game feels so short that you don't necessarily want to go for that, because you're almost wasting a turn to screw yourself on points if you happen to not get something workable. But other than that, minor gripe, it's a really good version of the larger game that fits into a tiny box and plays in 15 minutes. So that's something. I can't complain about that. And since I only paid $5 for it, I really don't care. But yeah, not bad. If you just need a light, quick Ticket to Ride that you can toss in between games of something else that you're doing on a gaming night, the London one's pretty good for that.
Nice. The only other thing I've got on the played stuff kinda piled this week is so a week ago we mentioned briefly the fact that the Switch 2 is the least well kept secret that the games industry's had for a while. So it did get announced last week, and it was exactly 100% everything that had been shown in photos over the previous 5 months. I this week have ended up with. Years ago, there was a joke that I 3D printed a PS4 Slim, because I managed to get my hands on a PS4 Slim 2 weeks before it was announced, and people claimed it was 3D printed. I've taken that to the next level. I do genuinely have a 3D printed version of an unreleased console in my home.
I loved that when you showed me that.
Yeah, so I've got one of them Switch 2s, sort of, in my house now, and there's not a lot to say about it. It's that thing that they revealed last week. It was coming down to postage. I was really hoping it would arrive before the reveal trailer happened. It arrived a day later. I really wanted to be on stream on the day and be like, oh yeah, Nintendo's going to announce the Switch 2 later today. Anyway, what's this I have? But there's a couple of things I think are maybe of note about it. First of all, a larger Joy-Con's really nice. It's really nice to have just a slightly bigger Joy-Con, to not feel quite as small in the hand. I am excited for this, if for no other reason than it's nice to have a handheld that has a bigger screen than the Steam Deck, but feels more like I might actually travel with it. Because as much as I like the Steam Deck, and I use it a lot as a thing at home, because I don't want to sit at my PC, but I want to play PC games, the thing about the Steam Deck is its thickness is comfortable for holding at home, but it makes it a real space hog to put in a bag when traveling. It just takes up considerably more volume in a bag or a suitcase because of those sort of thicker handles on the sides. The Switch 2 is about the same thickness as the original Switch, and that, keeping the form factor flat, makes a big difference to, I can see this is going to be a lot easier for me to actually travel with as a portable than the Steam Deck is, and that is nice. It is nice that it still feels not like it's just going to be this heavy, thick thing in my bag. Also, to the suspicions that people are going to be able to turn a Joy-Con on its side and use it as a mouse that have been doing the rounds, I very much believe that, having gotten my hands on the new Joy-Cons. Each of the Joy-Cons has a bumper and a trigger on it. The trigger is considerably deeper or longer. It goes further back, which makes it way easier to hold it sideways and go, oh yeah, there's room for 2 fingers to be on 2 mouse buttons here, which is interesting. Not much else to say other than it's weird to have had the joke come full circle, and now I have the 3D printed console in my home, which has amused me greatly. But yeah, should we talk about a couple of news stories?
Let's do it.
Sure.
Yeah. This first story, I'm going to give a bit of backstory to because I've been digging into this one. It's been a bit complicated this last week. So, Hollow Knight Silksong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That game that's been in development for fucking years and there's been no updates on other than just wait for it. That game has a fan base full of people who kickstarted it and are getting a bit impatient about the lack of updates. And I think that's understandable to a degree. You've paid money for a game and you've not had so much as a, hey, it's still in development, don't worry, it's still happening, update in a while. I can understand getting a little bit antsy. So people got very excited when it looked like last week an ARG was being started by a member of the dev team. One of the game's co-creators, William Pellon, updated his social media handle and his profile name and his profile picture on Twitter. I won't go into, all of the specifics, but, basically it boils down to people reverse image searched this picture of a cake that he'd made his display picture. It pointed to April 4th, 2024 was when, the recipe for this cake got posted online. Exactly a year later, April 4th, 2025 is when the big switch to Nintendo Direct is happening. People took this to mean Silksong's finally going to get shown at the Nintendo Direct Switch 2 presentation in April. It seemed very much like a ARG. He posted something big is coming tomorrow, and he posted this the day before the Switch 2 reveal happened. So, all of the things seemed to point very solidly at he knew the Switch 2 reveal trailer was coming before it happened, and he's pointing to the Switch 2 Nintendo Direct.
I mean, it sounds like a damn near guarantee.
Right, it sounds very clearly that's what that's pointing to. So that's not what it was pointing to.
Oh!
Because it wasn't pointing to anything. Because the guy was just fucking trolling.
Oh my god.
The guy was just fucking trolling and accidentally lead into some coincidences that made it look like his trolling was leading somewhere.
Oh no.
And this did not please the Silksong fandom, because understandably, they've been fucking desperate for any kind of official update on where the game they've already paid for is, and when they're eventually going to hear more about it. And to then think that they've finally gotten some info from a creator, only to go, nah, there's no ARG, I was just fucking with you, did not go over well.
No, I imagine not. The fact it was going nowhere is what gets me. It would be something if it was at least crossed wires and it was something disappointing, but it was something. The fact it was nothing but trolling, especially under the circumstances, is ridiculous.
I will read you the response. So there was this YouTuber called Fireborn who reached out to someone called Leth, who's also on the dev team, and I'll read the comment. Leth reached out to me to confirm there was no Silksong ARG, and that the changes to William's account and the tweet were a, quote, nothing burger. Apologies to have misled everyone, the cake was a lie.
Oh my god, that's the worst bit, saying that.
Right!
The statute of limitations is not lifted on that. It is still bad. One day, maybe 20 years from now, it will be ironic enough that saying that works again. It's still in arrow in the knee territory. It still stays in the box.
Yeah, we need a generation to have passed so that period can be all but forgotten, except by old people in rocking chairs.
Yes.
And then it can be rediscovered like some kind of lost legend or whatever.
Yeah.
But it has to be found by teenagers who will make fun of it before it can be reused in the popular vernacular. You gotta stop people.
You can't say that.
No,
that's worse
right.
than everything else I've heard is better than him saying that.
So, this all led to an actual update almost about the state of Silksong. Matthew Griffin, who apparently also works on the game, tweeted, yes, the game is real, progressing, and will release.
Oh, okay.
That's more of an update than people had before. It's still happening. We're still working on it. It's not gonna happen.
I don't really follow Hollow Knight. I played it. I saw why people liked it. There was a few bits about it that didn't gel with me. That's fine. But as a result, I don't really follow it. But I have heard the name Silksong so much. I thought it was long out. I thought it came out ages ago. I didn't even know it was a thing.
My understanding is it was originally planned to come out in early 2023. And there has not been a great deal of communication from the dev team as to what the additional delay is. The hope or understanding is that it's gone from... Originally, it was supposed to be the scope of like a DLC add-on to Hollow Knight, and it has sort of ballooned in scope to ambitious grand sequel. And that is probably, in the long run, going to lead to a better end product for people, but it's also leading to people having to wait considerably longer than they thought they were going to for the thing they thought they'd paid for on the time period they thought they were paying for it. I'll say this, I hadn't been following it terribly closely, but I'm following it now because it's on my fantasy fucking critic bingo for this year of like games I get points if they review well. So I've now got to I now have tortured myself by subjecting myself to following the game that's in development hell and having fantasy points reliant on this thing releasing. Yeah. So I'm now aware of all the drama.
And that's what you get for caring about video games.
I wanted to understand what all the excitement was and to bank on, if it comes out, people seem excited for it. And now I have to be aware of shit like this.
And one needs to remember always that you back something on Kickstarter, you're not actually pre-ordering anything.
Yeah, that is so important. It's a donation. It's a donation in that you believe in the prospect of this item. It's something you would like to see out in the world. But yeah, you're right. Projects fail all the time. Yeah, it is so common.
Yeah.
The thing that consumers were so shielded from for so long because it wasn't their money directly going towards the funding of these projects is that games get canceled all the time that you don't even know about, let alone the ones you do. Oh, and, you know, that failure is a part of the artistic process.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate when that is a consumer, you know, expectation that's been built that the thing is going to come out for sure because I gave the money for it. And that's simply not how it works.
No, it's a speculative donation, as you say. I've done voice acting on a Kickstarted game that never came out. And I've had the fucking, you know, ethics in game journalism people
you
come
still
after
get
me
shit
for
about
it.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Even though, you know, not my project. I fulfilled my part of the job. And what gets left out of that is the bit that, like, the point that I want to make, which is communicate. If you have a Kickstarter, the communication, or any crowdfunded project, whether it is cancelled or in development or going well, communication is key. And most people will be fine with it. The thing that doesn't come up with that project that I was attached to, the Chuck Tingle game, is it was clearly communicated to the backers, the problems that were being had with it, and they were fine with it.
Yep.
That's the bit that it was the bad faith people that had never contributed to it because they hated the people involved with it. And they're trying to act offended on behalf of people who were fine with the game being, like, up in the air. Because they believed in the developer, in the creatives behind it, and they understood. And so long as you are clear and communicative, you'll have some pushback. Most people will be fine.
Yeah.
As someone who has done crowdfunded projects myself a couple of times, it really takes so little to keep an audience of backers feeling like they're in the loop, and like, oh yeah, I'm happy to wait because I know where the project is at. At least, like, once every 3 months go, hey, there might not be a lot to talk about, but, like, here's a bit of concept art of, like, a run cycle.
Yeah.
Or here's what we're doing behind the scenes. I can't give you specifics, but we're at the stage where we're workshopping titles and printing's going to be like 4 months probably from now. That's where we're at. We're still doing it, and this is where we're at, and you feel looped in.
Yeah,
it's so easy to do.
Yeah, well, and at the same token, I am sympathetic because it is also very easy to get yourself into a mind state where you feel like, I don't really have anything to say. I don't have anything that's going to, be new or exciting or interesting. Or I'm just at a point where I don't want to make people feel discouraged because progress isn't going as quickly as just say something. Just show
say that.
something.
Say that. People will still be fine with it.
Yep.
Like, if they're giving you money for a project, chances are they're your biggest fans.
Yeah.
They are the most forgiving audience you're going to have. And you want to make sure you don't take that for granted or take the piss with that. But they will be the most forgiving so long as you treat them with respect.
Yeah. They are the people who just want some sense that the thing still exists. And that by having put money in, they are going to be kept in the loop about how it's doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really not a lot to ask on most projects, I think. But yeah, a couple of other quick bits of newsy stuff. This week, sad news that happened. David Lynch passed away this week, which fucking sucks.
Yeah.
And look, there's a lot of wonderful things I could say about David Lynch's work. I think he has created some fascinating, truly impressive pieces of art in his career. But if we're going to talk about him on a video game show, I do want to remind people that he made a PlayStation 2 advert back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've never seen it, and you don't know anything else about David Lynch, go watch Welcome to the Third Space. I've watched it like 6 times today, and I can't work out whether I believe that this is a genuine, sincere Lynch project, or if this is Lynch taking the piss by doing someone in a boardroom asked me, do the David Lynch thing, and I went, okay, fine, I'll do the David Lynch thing for you. And I cannot work out where on that line it lies, and I am fascinated by it.
I mean, yeah. Everything that man did is fascinating, and it's hard to tell where the sincerity is. There's definitely a bunch of it in his work. But I tried to watch that Netflix one he did with him interrogating a monkey for an hour. I still can't get my head around that one.
Look, I think his work is truly spectacular, one of a kind. He is a unique creative. He was a unique creative in as much as I don't know any other creator who so staunchly has gone, I refuse to make what people want me to make, and I'm actively going to resent being forced to make something that people expect of me.
Yeah.
And I think there is something beautiful about that.
I love his creative output. I have my issues with David Lynch as a person, and it's that the worst part is I don't even really feel like it's his fault. I'm glad that the last 2 things he ever did was come back to Twin Peaks and then do that short film with the monkey. Like what a way to go out.
Genuinely, I think it is the best way someone's body of work could have ended, is a very direct response to decades of people asking you to come back and keep making that thing that you had a lot of feelings about how it went in the first place, and a completely inscrutable piece of work. And I'm like, beautiful.
Yeah.
It's how we should all want to go.
Mm-hmm.
Other news, I don't think the body of this is going to be a surprise, but the numbers might be a little surprising. GDC happened a little while back and asked a bunch of developers. They do a survey every year of multiple thousand developers, ask them a bunch of questions. One of the things they asked at the last GDC was 3,000 developers, how many of you got laid off in the last 12 months? About 1,300 of 3,000
Jesus Christ.
Attendees lost their job in the prior year.
They didn't lose their job. Their job was taken from them.
Yeah, so not only did 1 in 10 developers report having been laid off directly, 41% of respondents felt the impact of layoffs in some way.
Yeah.
Yeah. The area most impacted by layoffs was game narratives, where 19% of people surveyed had lost their jobs in the last 12 months, which feels like it probably lines up with the fucking trying to do a huge shift to live services.
Oh, yeah. Like, good writing doesn't spin easy cash.
Yeah. Some more positive news. 1 in 5 respondents said they discussed unionization with their co-workers over the past 12 months.
That's
Good.
not nothing.
Like, one hopes that this rampant late-stage capitalism leads to more of that.
29% said their companies were supportive of union discussions.
Mm-hmm.
So that's some positive. People are still being crunched and made to work longer hours than they should.
Yeah.
Which is not ideal, but, you know...
They're going to keep doing that for as long as they can get away with it.
Yeah. None of these are great numbers for the health of the industry, but it does give me some confidence that the numbers of people talking about unionization are rising.
Yeah.
In response to this. I'm glad that is the response the industry is having, is going, layoffs are happening left, right, and centre. Unions are probably how we protect ourselves from this.
It's good because, you know, I've been doing this for a long time now, and when I first started talking more about unionization, there was a lot more hostility towards it from developers, not just the publishers, because a lot of developers had drunk the Kool-Aid. A lot of them were doing well at that time. You know, everything was booming, and companies were still in their growing, not their desperate for growth phase. So a lot of devs felt secure and comfortable and had bought the company line of union bad. And I got a lot of pushback on that kind of stuff from developers, even though I was like, mate, this is for your benefit. And we saw that with like the protests against whenever voice actors would unionize. You'd get devs being like, oh, why should they get extra? When it's like, yeah, you're asking the right question, but of the wrong people. Why aren't you getting more? Why are they paid more than you? It's not because they don't deserve it. It's because you deserve more. It's sad that it had to come from the leopards eating their faces, but it is good that they are finally realizing, oh shit, we're working for leopards.
Yeah. And we got one last story very quickly. You know Genshin Impact?
Oh,
that anime gacha game. They're in trouble for doing some bad, naughty crimes. They have agreed to pay $20 million due to an FTC case with the Federal Trade Commission, accusing it of violating children's privacy and deceiving players.
How much money did they make last year?
Considerably more.
Well, yeah. It's
a
fine.
fucking drop in the bucket.
It's a fine, therefore it's not a crime, if you can afford it.
Indeed.
I was talking about this on stream last night. Obviously, the money they are charged is a joke. They are essentially just paying a fee to make money. It's just a premium tariff. It's a tax at best, and a small one at that, which, considering most of these companies don't pay real tax, it's a good trade-off. But
it's the government selling out the consumer by saying, oh, okay, it's all right if you take advantage of them as long as we get our cut.
Sure.
Yeah.
But the positive is, it does set precedents for, this is not on. Even if it's like, you can pay to make it on. Anything that chips away at the credibility and the assumed legality of what's going on is a very small step, but it's still a step in the right direction.
Yep.
Yeah. And I do want to take a second before we finish to say what it was they did wrong. Because I think it is important people know the things that were going on. One of them, I think, is probably more important to our audience to hear than the other. But the first one is, they had children under 13 playing the game who they knew were under 13. They collected their personal information anyway and shared it with third parties, even though they know they're not supposed to do that and they're supposed to take efforts to stop under 13s doing it. if they realize a user's under 13, they're not supposed to keep collecting and sharing their data, but they did. Probably the one that's more immediately important to hear for people listening to this who might play it. There was some deliberately misleading stuff going on around the chances of you getting the things you were opening loot boxes for and spending real money for. To read from the claim, Genshin Impact's purchasing process misleads consumers about the amount of money they spend on loot boxes on an ongoing basis, and the amount of money that they would likely need to spend to obtain certain prizes. Their event banners and influencer campaigns also allegedly gave players the impression they would have better odds of obtaining 5-star prizes than was really the case. So, actively lying to you about the odds of getting the thing you're spending money to gamble for, and misleading you about how much money you have been spending and will be spending and are likely to spend to get the thing you're trying to pull for.
And this is where, I am sick of the continued, unchallenged propaganda that comes out. It's just optional. Only a small number of people do it. All of this shit. Like, they are actively misleading people. It's not the optional nature of microtransactions that makes them a problem. It's not relevant. The psychological manipulation and the deception and the ableism is what's relevant.
But at the very least, casino regulations. I don't like the casino business, but I will give them this. We have regulated them. They have to give you the odds. They have to tell you what the fucking odds are. That's the bare minimum that needs to be expected of these companies, is they tell you honestly what the fucking odds are. And then you can make that decision if you want.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
And this is why I wanted to bring that up. I was like, not being clear about the literal odds that you're gambling on is like a thing that is important to fucking know if you are gambling on those odds.
And it's also, you need to remember as well, games change constantly.
Mm-hmm.
They can change the odds at the press of a button as well. Because I know FIFA was trying to get people off their back with, showing odds. But they can always change them. You can't trust the companies.
Well, I mean, and again, as long as those odds are clearly displayed in a way that the end user can understand what the odds are of the gamble that they're about to make, I mean, I don't like it, but at least you're being fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it should be very telling that companies have so fiercely fought against any sort of regulation of their gacha shit. If they've got nothing to hide, why are they fighting to hide things?
Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's all the stuff for this week.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, the odds of you having produced lovely work for the listeners, Laura, that's a safe bet. And can you tell people how they'd like to spend not their money, but their time? Or sometimes their money as well if they're in a bookshop.
Well, if they want to check out stuff I'm up to, they can find it at Laura K. Buzz pretty much everywhere. Currently on Twitch, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I'm doing Babysitting Mama and Cooking Mama Cooks Are speedrunning. My anime rival from several years ago in Cooking Mama Cookstar, my other competitive player in that game, has come back to speedrunning. The competition has reawakened, so that's going fun. So check that out. If you go to YouTube, you can check out episodes of Control Alt Access, which is a video podcast I do with my lovely co-worker, Arevia. We talk about video game accessibility. You can also check out episodes of Accessibility over on YouTube. The most recent and the next one coming up are both videos about accessibility stuff with the Switch 2. One is about the potential of mouse controls as a way to work around motion controls. The other being about the potential of a top USB-C port to allow portable players to use accessibility controllers. Go check those out. Just Laura K. Buzz. You'll find all the stuff somewhere out there in the world. What about you, Conrad? Where are you out on the internet?
Oh, you can find me at Conrad Zimmerman on Blue Sky. You can hang out with me on Twitch at twitch.tv/thatconradzimmerman. I'm on Sundays, Mondays, and Tuesdays. You can buy anti-capitalist propaganda that I make at mercenarycreative.com, and everything that I do online gets supported through Patreon at patreon.com/fistshark. And you know who else has a Patreon? Stephanie Sterling.
That is true. Patreon.com/Jimquisition, which pays for this podcast and the videos and the reviews on thejimquisition.com. I'm not sure when my next wrestling date is. I've got to get those booked in. I know I'm going to be in Manchester quite a bit this coming year, but I'll have more on that later. I also stream at Twitch TV/Jim Sterling, which I'm going to change that name soon. I'm sick of that handle now. But yeah, other than that, check me out, Commander Sterling on Blue Sky, Instagram, and shit, that's it. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.